Winning as a survivor has never been easier than it is now. We have various busted perks with no nerf in sight, like the zero downsides botany to heal fast, resurgence to heal underhook in seconds, shoulder the burden to completely change the tide of a match, vigil to make our broken exhaustion perks faster to use, hyperfocus takeout to finish generators in half the time. Decisive strike is literally a free perk as of now, but that's not all, because the devs keep feeding us. Ghoul got a nerf to its Volt power, making him easier than ever to loop. Blight will get a nerf that removes the most brain-dead way to play him. We have 70-second timers on Hook that removes the need to think about the macro. 15 seconds endurance in the endgame to guarantee our escapes. The new map is massively survivor-sided, and we will soon be able to see our teammates' perks, making coordination even possible in solo queue. And yet, despite all of this, despite the countless and countless buffs added on top of buffs that make the game easier for survivors to play in autopilot, I still win the vast majority of my killer matches, no matter what killer I play, no matter what build I decide to run, 4Ks back to back without even tryharding. So how can I as a player claim that survivors are the power role of the game, say that winning without tunneling or slugging is impossible, yet constantly keep winning without slugging or tunneling? Simple. I don't win because I am a good player. I win because the survivors let me win. But they are so entitled that they do not see that. They blame the killer. And just to make it clear, I am not talking about casual players. Those I fully support and understand. The game is hard to play right now. There are many perks and add-ons you need to learn, many macro decisions to take, many killers to counter and maps to know the layout. I don't blame those players at all, and you will never see me get mad when the thing that is lacking from a player is knowledge. What I am referring to is entitled survivors. That breed of players who play like shit and then blame their teammates or the killer because they played like shit. Those players that the moment they hear the Ghoul or the Knight's terror radius, they immediately DC without even attempting to learn the counterplay to those killers. And why should they? Their entitlement is the reason why Skull Merchant, a killer that was B tier at best, got massively nerfed and is absolute trash to this day. An entire killer got it because players didn't want to learn how to counter her kit, which all you had to do is stand still or crouch. And these kinds of players, the entitled ones, are dangerous for the health of the game, because they genuinely think they can have an opinion on the balance of it without playing the other side. If you say Shoulder the Burden is overpowered, they will tell you that you are just a bad player, because the perk does nothing if you don't tunnel, which is not true. Shoulder is the strongest perk a survivor can bring in the game. It's absolutely game changing. It's banned on competitive. But because these players suck major ass and they don't use this perk because they go down in seconds, they think the perk is okay. After all, it's not a problem for me, so my opinion is the one that matters. These players will claim that killers can win without tunneling or slugging, so the only players that tunnel are the losers and tryhards, but that's because they as survivors suck so much that the killer doesn't need to tunnel to win. They don't understand that they suck at the game. They are the reason why the killer doesn't need to tunnel. They are the reason why low tier killers win. It's not the game, it's them. And playing that monthly Huntress or Blight match against low MMR survivors to finish their Rift challenges does not count as you playing both sides. It's easy to see the killers are the power role when you suck at the game and don't know how to counter them or how to play properly because you DC the moment you hear their terror radius. When you heal under the hook and complain that the killer is tunneling you out, when you are on death hook and yet you expose yourself for the killer to find you instead of hiding, when you repair the first generator you see instead of breaking at regen to guarantee the killer will lose if they don't have mobility, when you decide to play very altruistically and end up having your entire team killed in the endgame because of it, giving the killer an easy 4K. And this is, in my opinion, one of the biggest problems in terms of balance. the gigantic difference there is between players that want to learn, want to improve, want to be good at the game like the competitive players, and the losers who want the game to be played by itself, who want the killers to be wholesome chungus getting spun around like their favorite Survivor main creator does on their videos, not knowing that these creators can spend hours and hours trying to get that one match where everything goes right. They don't want that. They want their satisfaction now, and if you don't play by their rules, they have the right to DC and fuck up their teammates because of it. The problem is that these players are not invisible, you cannot ignore them. Check out some of the players that DC in your matches, and you will notice that a lot of them run the latest cosmetics available for their characters. They spend their money in the game, buy the newest survivors, the newest skins, so these kinds of players have a voice. The devs need to cater to them, because just like you and I, they bought the game, they keep spending and they have the same power as us, which is how we ended up with 15 seconds of endurance, with the anti-facecam mechanic, or with the 70-second hook timers, and how we almost ended up with the tunneling and slugging punishments on the Krasu PTB. And at this point, I don't blame the devs at all for not knowing how to balance their game. According to their kill rates, Sadako is an absolute beast, because a lot of players don't understand and don't want to learn her, so they cannot buff Sadako because she will be even stronger. Why would they remove the 15-second endurance timer or the 70-second hook timers when killers are still killing as always and getting insane kill streaks with ease that these survivors will later use to prove that the game is not survivor-sided? Now you might be wondering what the hell happened for me to break and even make a video like this in the first place. And the answer is the Blood Moon event. As you might know, the Blood Moon is by far the best moment to grind the game for prestiges, and this year I decided to get Unknown to Prestige 100 so I can have the icon for it. This of course meant that I had to play Dead by Daylight a lot, which was my biggest mistake because it made me lose faith in the community. At first, I played as a survivor, as it was the role with the least stress. I could watch videos and repair generators or hold W and pre-drop to counter the majority of killers. But later on, I thought that it would make more sense to grind blood points as the killer, since that way I will be able to earn much more. And so I went to play killer on the Blood Moon event, and because I didn't want the stress of dealing with all the BS I do when playing as a survivor, I decided one rule on myself. I would 2-hook everyone and then let them escape. This made playing killer so much easier because I didn't have to strategize or counter any of their busted stuff. All I could do was mess around and practice my killers. But something crazy happened. In every single match I did, I absolutely demolished the survivors. These were the lowest cortisol matches I had ever done. So I kept playing the event, getting the easiest matches ever that allowed me to play Unknown in my favorite way, which was to get those nasty snipes and triple shots. I did not have to worry about hooks at all, or about tunneling, or camping, or trying to counter their perks. But one day, I made a mistake. Instead of queuing up for the Blood Moon event, I accidentally went into the normal queue. And that day, everything changed. Now, I had the craziest competitive matches ever. I had to lock in just to have a chance at winning or getting a draw, which felt impossible with the playstyle I had of hooking everyone equally. These players absolutely demolished my Unknown. I felt dominated in every single match. I even lost against a full no-mider team because these players were very good. Suddenly, because of one button, my Unknown went from an S tier character to the harmless. Gens were flying faster than any pressure I could do. This was the most revealing thing I could have done, because it opened my eyes. This was peak performance for survivors. These were genuinely good players, the kind that you play against to become stronger, something I haven't had in ages consistently, and despite me being miserable, loss after loss after loss, I still queued up for this mode because I wanted to improve as a player, and what better way to do that than play against competent survivors instead of the entitled ones that give you a win for free. I don't have any issue playing against better players than me. On the contrary, I love it. However, I was not playing against 4 survivors. I was playing against 4 survivors and 16 busted perks in every single match. So what should have been matches where the strongest won, turned out to be matches where the players that equipped the most broken shit won. Fast Track, decisive in an aggressive way with Plot Twist, Unbreakable, Resurgence, Stakeout Hyperfocus. I could do nothing as a killer without extreme tunneling with Quad Slowdown. This is real DBD. This is what it can be. This is where you can see the reality of the balance in Dead by Daylight, a game where competent players can abuse the killers easily and where tunneling and slugging is not a suggestion, it's mandatory to win. Just check out any competitive tournament ever and you will see that the main thing a killer has to do to get a chance at winning is tunneling a survivor out. How these competitive tournaments ban certain perks like Shoulder the Burden or Fast Track because they are absolutely busted. How they ban the anti-face cam mechanic. Yet in normal DBD, these same players that have insane chase skills now can also run the most busted shit you have ever seen. Busted shit that was not designed with competent survivors in mind, but it was designed with those poor little survivors that don't want to learn to be better at the game. And how did we get here? Because of entitled players. See, all of the players on those matches were genuinely good even without the perks. They had good movement, they understood good macro, they knew when to do what, and understandably they came to win. So why shouldn't they run the most busted shit? But this busted shit exists because the majority of players are shit, that don't know how to play the game, that have horrible pathing as if they were drunk, players that don't have good macro and unhook right in front of the killer because they see their teammates as walking blood points, that don't know what the hell they're doing because their perks carry them to the next bright yellow spot, and that they didn't come to try to win, they came to get the win handed to them. A red carpet rolled in the exit gates as you watch them leave with 6-digit blood points, all because the devs cater to them, as they are the players buying the next V outfit. Don't believe me? Let me show you. I find 3 survivors at the beginning of the match, so who will I chase? The Rebecca going to the House of Pain, the Claudette going to the Shack, or this V going to a dead zone? The obvious answer is the V, so I down her, hook her, and then she gets saved while I am nearby by the Claudette that was infected earlier. Instead of leaving, they heal under the hook, so what should I do? Let them heal? I hit them, and instead of going to the V to punish her, I go for Claudette to punish her for such a premature save. Then I started chasing Rebecca, and this player was actually pretty decent and I would have lost if all 4 players were like her. So in these situations, against good players in a strong loop, I would rather leave. And guess what? Again, survivors are healing under the hook, so what do? Punish them, but instead of going after Claudette, I go for Feng, hook her, and then leave again. I find Rebecca, chase her for a bit, and then find Claudette going for the save, so I intercept her and chase her normally, which leads to a down. While trying to kick a gen, I find Feng going for the save, but all I do is infect her, that's it. Instead of going after her and punishing her misplay, I decided to go for someone else. Even after the Feng unhooked the Claudette, I still let them be. After a while of chasing Rebecca, I leave her infected so I can snipe her later, find the Feng, and decide to down her since she is mispositioned. And you can see how poorly she played on this loop, how bad her pathing was. I hook her, harass the closest person to me, and then I leave to pressure the hook, finding Rebecca. Later, I find V going for the save, and knowing she's infected, I down her and get yet another hook. Feng gets saved, but instead of going after her, even though I can see her where she's running, I decide to go for Rebecca, who misplayed and mispositioned herself. Now please tell me at this point how many opportunities I have given to the players so they can get their blood points. I intentionally made various unoptimal plays just for the sake for the survivors being able to play and grind blood points too, but that doesn't mean I didn't come to win. Even after that, I found Feng, who was on death hook, chase her for a bit, and literally leave her so I can down her with a cool snipe after. But what does she do? She runs to me while infected, while not even looking back to get rid of her infection, and I still don't go after her. I decide to go for the Claudette in the shack, which is a horrible decision for me when I could have gone for the Feng, who was on death hook, infected and in a dead zone not looking at me. I drop the chase with Claudette and go pressure gens. and I see someone healing the Feng. This is my moment to set up an orbital. Now pay attention to this. They don't even move. They don't attempt to leave. They just give up. So what did I do wrong here? Did I not give them enough chances? Did I play wrong? Was my build too strong? Was my killer too strong? I even let Feng slugged so V can get some points and went after Rebecca, downing her and hooking her, which was so much free time for Feng and V to reposition themselves. And what do? They gave up again. Fuck their Rebecca, fuck their Claudette, they just stopped playing. V even triggers the clone just so I could get her out of the match faster. This is what Feng said in the end. So what do we do with players like these, where I genuinely gave them various chances and they still are entitled enough to give up and insult me in the endgame? These players have the same voting rights as we do despite missing more than half of our neurons. These players are the ones the devs cater to, because Unknown is way too strong on a survivor-sided map in a survivor-sided meta. These players genuinely believe that as a killer, you have to let them repair and escape, because the event is for funsies and wholesome moments. I shouldn't try to win, that's cringe. Instead, what I should have done is ask for the devs to give Unknown a janitor skin with a mop so I can clean the floors of the exit gates so that survivors don't dirty up their shoes when walking out of them. Now I know what you're thinking. This is the wholesome Chungos farming blood points event. Of course I should let them escape. There were various gens left and they were all on death hook. This match was unwinnable, so I am entitled to think these players have to keep playing when the match is over. Alright, let's take a look at this example right here. I get Unknown on a map that I don't like as much because I cannot do orbitals on it. I find an 11 early in the match and get an easy 2 tap on her because she misplayed. The moment I down her, she DCs. And the funniest part, she gets saved. How is that fair for her teammates? How is that not entitlement to leave the match because you went down because you suck as a player? And the worst part is that this 11 genuinely believes that what she did was correct, because maybe the map is boring, maybe the killer is boring, or getting 2 tapped sucked, and I should have given her more of a chance. I won the match not because I played well, but because 11 disconnected. I only played one match since the Blood Moon event ended, and in this match I was lucky to find a cool fan, but I was also accused of tunneling, so I will let you decide whether I tunneled or not. The match begins, I find Rick Grimes and chase him normally, eventually hooking him. Later on I find Jake, and so I decide to chase him and also take him down. After that I find another survivor, chase them for a bit, but eventually I decide to teleport to pressure the savior, and I find Rick Grimes and the Jake is still injured, which, mind you, they had plenty of time to leave that area, so I down the Jake, but instead go for Rick so I don't tunnel. And I find the second Jake completely mispositioned, so I go after him, letting the slugged one get healed. After he gets healed, I find Ada and decide to pressure her and prevent Jake from going back and saving, since he was injured. So I return to the hooks when Ada comes to them, literally leave Rick Grimes and the other Jake to escape and go for Ada Wong, a survivor with 0 hooks. I teleport away after hooking her, find Rick healing Jake, down Rick, and sacrifice him fully. Now let's see what happens. I find Ada Wong healing herself. I down her with a very easy shot to predict as a survivor and hook her. I get a very long chase against Jake, so I leave only to return back and get a nasty shot on the generator, so I hook the Jake after spooking the other Jake out. See Ada repairing, so I go after her, but since she is on death hook, I would rather chase Jake, so I return to hook to get the first Jake to death hook, and now all survivors are fair game. So after some chases, I kill the first Jake after finding him in a dead zone, then I find Ada Wong and I down her with the exact same play I did in an earlier chase, and finally the Jake escapes. Was I tunneling? Was I a loser and a typical killer? Check her loadout. She is running Vigil Fast Track and still couldn't beat me in a normal match. She went down pathetically in the same exact way, which proves the saying of only a man would trip on the same stone twice, and yet, instead of admitting defeat, understanding that she was at fault, that she sucked as a player, instead of seeing how many opportunities I gave to the survivors constantly with a low tier killer, she still complained and I bet you everything she queued up for the next match. But perhaps the most egregious case of survivor entitlement didn't happen in the Blood Moon event. It happened 4 months ago in a match I titled as Entitled Survivors because I genuinely could not believe it. This time it was with Ghostface. I find an ace early in the match and get a lucky ambush on him. So what did I do wrong here? A. Playing Ghostface, a boring killer to face. B. Not disconnecting in Larry's, which is a map where I have the advantage. Or C. Downing ace way too fast and not giving the team enough time. Let me know which option you choose, because to this day I still don't understand why the survivors on the opposite side of the map decided to just give up. They dropped pallets to bring my attention, I downed both V and Gabriel so they stopped, and even then, I still left their hooks, and I did not return back just to give them an extra opportunity to come back in the game. Imagine any other PvP game where your rivals give you extra chances to win against them. That's absolutely insane for me to think about. While going around the map, I find Renato, stalk him a bit, and then return to the hooked area after a while, which had all 3 survivors, V and Gabriel, resetting. So I just down them again because it's clear these players do not want to play, they don't even attempt to escape. And what is sad for me is that after that, Gabriel comes back so I can hook him again, and you can see how this bothers Ace Visconti. I decided to chase him, and instead of giving up, this Ace was a very decent player. He ran me for a while, but in the middle of that cool chase, V comes out of nowhere so I can down her and get her out of the match, and you can see how she intentionally sandbags the Ace just so the match would end faster, which was so unfair in my opinion, and as a killer player, I would never respect a survivor sandbagging their own teammates. So I down V so she stops bothering, but as a punishment for giving up for no reason and messing up her teammates, I let her bleed out on the ground. That way, if she really wants to go next, then DC and take the penalty. I hook Ace, then find Renato and give him the easy way out with the abandon feature, as I didn't want to make the game boring for Renato since he did nothing wrong. Well, in the endgame, this was the reaction of Gabriel and V. They said, I am boring to play against. So it seems like these players were able to read the future, as they knew I would be boring to play against the moment I downed Ace Visconti. They didn't even have a single normal chase against me, they didn't even attempt to use their perks, they just decided to give up for absolutely no reason against one of the weakest killers in the game that, as proven by Ace, who was a good sport and played well, you could loop easily in this map. There is a very high chance that entitled survivors that watch this will think I am an entitled killer main, even though the point of this video is to show how survivors are the problem of this community and I want players to be better and play more teamwork focused. So let me show you an entitled case in the POV of a survivor. This match started very nice, as I am a massive fan of playing against Unknown, and he had a Hex build, so I decided to break some of the totems I could find. The match was looking pretty good, as I know how to counter the Unknown and have a lot of fun playing against one, especially because this player knew some cool tricks with this character. But in the middle of the match, turns out the killer had Pentimento, 5 stacks at 5 generators. In that moment even I said it's over, we lost the match, but not, because with enough conviction any match is winnable, especially with how long my chases were. So all my teammates needed to do is stick to gens and that's it. Here is a fun fact about Pentimento. With this perk, it is impossible to have all 5 hexes stand in the same match without a perk like Plaything that keeps adding more totems, a perk that the killer was not running. In fact, there was no haunted grounds, so at most, this killer only had 3 hexes, which means someone broke 2 dual totems in order to give Unknown the 5 stacks of Pentimento. Can you guess who it was based on this background footage? Exactly, the Jake, who decided to disconnect in the first chase he did, was running a totem build. So it was him who put us in this situation in the first place, and you can clearly see how he was the only survivor that disconnected from the match. He caused the problem that we had to deal, and he was entitled enough to go next, which fucked us up. And the worst part is that we actually could have won this match if only Jake was playing to win. So how is this fair? Why did we and Talita have to deal with this bullshit another player did, and yet we didn't DC because we still wanted to try our best, and trust me, it was possible to win. How is tunneling, slugging and camping something boring, to the point the devs put measures to punish killer players for doing it in the form of base kit features and strong second chance perks, yet we as players are punished because someone decided to leave us in the mess they created, and they have the right to keep playing and going next with zero punishments taken. How is that fair? And by the way, these cases I showed on my video are those that I kept on my hard drive, because like this, I have played many. Survivors that go AFK after they're hooked, survivors that don't do generators and instead waste their time breaking totems, countless of DCs after going down in the first chase, survivors that intentionally come straight to me so they can go next, and so many more that I removed because that footage was unusable as B-roll. These kinds of players will go on Twitter and complain that the game is boring or killer-sided while having horrible pathing or very bad decisions. They clearly don't have fun in Dead by Daylight. They don't treat the game like the teamwork game it is. They treat it as if it was dressed to impress, where they want to showcase their latest purchase to the killers using the exit gates as a modeled runway. Mark my words. Next patch, when they release the ability of teammates seeing everyone's perks, they will still not use this feature and complain on Twitter that the game is too hard, even though the devs gave you plenty of tools and resources to win a match in Dead by Daylight easily, with the condition that you are good enough. But they don't care to be good enough. They know that at some point, the devs will listen to all these complaints of tunneling, killer 2 OP and stuff, that they will eventually nerf their killers more and more. Tunneling, slugging and camping are seen by behavior as the bad guys of Dead by Daylight, the reason the game sucks and the reason why players drop it. Well, there is something worse, being entitled and ruining the match for your teammates. If it was for me, I would severely punish players that disconnect from a match. Make it so that if you DC, either increase the punishment by a lot or create a loser's queue where players that constantly DC have to play against each other, or make it so that you cannot play another match until the previous match has finished. That way, you are forced to play the game you queue-upped in. And if you don't like it, as Matthew Cote said, go play something else. Now, I am not the dictator you think I am. I do think there needs to be a safeguard for players that might have genuine problems, like a weak PC or a bad internet connection like it was in one of my cases, or players that might have accessibility issues, as it doesn't make sense to heavily punish those players because of some bad apples. My solution is simple. Remove the DC penalty when players are in a full swift. The main issue I have with disconnects is when one teammate refuses to play and ruins the match for the other 3 that do want to play. However, if you're playing with 4 friends, then if anyone DCs, that's their problem. So that way, there is a solution for these players to be allowed to DC without bothering other players. When you DC against a plague because you have a metaphobia, that's not fair for the other 3 players that don't have it and got matched against you. But if you DC while in a group, everyone understands why that was the case and it doesn't bother anyone. So it's a win-win for both sides in my opinion. Entitled survivors that don't have any accessibility issues are also free to find 3 other losers on Discord like them so they can DC whenever they want and be miserable without messing up their teammates. But I think no matter what, entitled survivors will always exist. After all, there are various content creators that feed on that circle jerk. If you go to Twitter or DVD forums, you will see a lot of players that agree with each other that they're entitled to ruin the match for the others. Oh, I don't like playing against this killer, so just leave. The killer is tunneling to get a win. That's cringe. That's something that a lot of content creators promoted. So this runs deep in the culture of Dead by Daylight, and I don't think there is an easy solution for it.